Hello and welcome to this, the third and final live stream event of this run of Caring for Vulnerable Children. Hopefully we've already got over 130 people joining us live this morning. I see people posting comments in the sidebar up the side, so thank you. Thanks for joining us. I'll start by introducing myself. My name's Graham McPhee. I'm the lead educator on Care for Vulnerable Children. I'm based at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow in Scotland. Normally, I would be doing these sorts of sessions from the studio in our offices in Glasgow. Obviously, like the vast majority of people, a lot of people certainly, I'm working from home now, so hence a kind of slightly different backdrop and surroundings. But if you've been with us for the first couple of these live stream events, then you'll be familiar with this backdrop. So thanks very much for joining us. Realise a lot of people join us in real time, and also we have an awful lot of people access these events via YouTube afterwards. So thanks whether you're participating in real time or watching and listening after the fact. This live stream marks the end of this run of the programme, and when I say end, by that I mean the kind of these sorts of real-time interactions and the opening up of the material over the 6 weeks. Appreciate that a lot of you have joined after the original start date, and one of the great things about Future Learn is that you retain access to all the material and you can work through that at your own pace. So if you're slightly behind with the material, then please don't worry about that. You can still continue to work through that at your own pace and contribute in the conversations that happen in the comments section. What I'm going to try to do today in this session essentially is kind of three kind of real things that I would like to focus on. Obviously, we've got so many participants and kind of so much comments and conversation going on. It's impossible for me to pick up on and reply to everything. So I've kind of picked out kind of some main things for us to think about. Number one, I'm going to kind of offer a little bit of comment and discuss the two-part poll that a lot of you participated in weeks 5 and 6, where we gave you 10 scenarios, again similar to how we did in week 1. And we asked you to vote in week 5 and then again in week 6 with a bit more information. And there's some interesting changes there from weeks 5 to 6, so we're going to kind of have a bit of chat about that. Secondly, we're going to talk about Billy's story and the conclusion to Billy's story and the huge amounts of comments that Billy's story has generated and some of the themes and issues that Billy's story throws up. So we're going to use that as well as some conversation. And then third and finally, respond to some more kind of general questions and points that have been posed in the question and the comments bar over the last kind of couple of weeks as a way of kind of rounding up this part of the programme. But before I jump into that, I should say, I mean, this has just been such a fabulous run of Care for Vulnerable Children for us now, and I'm glad that, I guess, given the current circumstances, and I guess against the kind of current backdrop where a lot of us are kind of facing a lot of kind of uncertainty and having to kind of cope with a lot, that this for certainly some participants at least appears to have provided kind of something stimulating and interesting and a community of learners to begin to kind of engage with and converse with about different issues that have always been relevant in terms of this task of caring for vulnerable children, but probably have never felt more relevant than they do in the world today in terms of us thinking about kind of some of the challenges that we're going to face as a society moving forward and thinking about how we care for vulnerable children. So, I mean, just to give you a kind of sense of the size of the learning community that you are part of, we're coming up on just 13,500 participants on this particular run of the course. So it's been great to kind of see so many people join the programme and engage with it, generating thousands upon thousands of comments, so kind of real good conversations going on. And we truly have an international community of learners, 142 different countries represented in that learning community, which I'm fairly sure I think is a kind of record for us. In this course, we always have an internationally diverse population, but I'm not sure it's ever been quite as big as 142. So kind of welcome to each and every one of you from those 142 different countries. I guess unsurprisingly, given that we're based in the UK, the vast majority, I think it's roughly 83%, are from the UK, but huge kind of numbers of international learners. And I'll make a particular shout out to Australia because they're the second biggest population with 2%. And Sarah, who's my colleague who's kind of keeping me right technically from our house, Sarah's Australian. So I kind of thought it would be nice to kind of mention that in this final session. So let's move on to the kind of first substantial thing I would like to speak about, and that's about the two-part poll. So similar to what we did in week 1, where we gave you 10 scenarios, and also the poll in week 1 was about kind of getting some initial conversation going about attitudes to risk and vulnerability, and we give you 10 very short scenarios and asked you to think about kind of what were the 3 scenarios that you thought kind of were presenting the most issues in terms of risk and vulnerability. Well, I guess we did something similar over weeks 5 and 6. We give you a very short scenario, 10 very short scenarios, and asked you to pick the 3 again that you thought were the most risky or had the most why. And then in week 6, we gave you some more information. Again, not a massive amount of information, just a small amount of information, and asked you, right, has that changed your view here? Is there any, in terms of kind of what are the kind of 3 scenarios that you're picking now, and kind of what are the changes and why? And if you go into the page in the week 6 material, you'll see the results in terms of the numbers from week 5 and the numbers from week 6 and any changes. So I'm not going to run through all 10 of the scenarios, but I'm going to pick out 3 I'm going to pick out the 3 scenarios where there were the biggest changes, and to kind of just have a bit of a chat about kind of what's interesting about that, and perhaps kind of why those changes might have happened, and kind of what that tells us. So the first one I want to focus on is Kelly. Kelly was 14. In week 1, you get told she doesn't attend school regularly, and when she does, she falls asleep in class, and she was referred by a guidance teacher. Now, in week 1, Kelly was only selected by 3% of the participants, so it's not a kind of massive proportion. But then when we moved into the week 6, the further information we gave you is that further investigation shows her father left the family 2 years ago. Her mother is a drug addict. She falls asleep in class because she's looking after her 4-year-old brother, 3-year-old sister at home. She's worried that something will happen to her mum. So hearing that extra information, it's not surprising that we see Kelly go from 3% to 34%, because there's something far more concrete to be worried about just now in terms of that initial information. I guess Kelly could have been sleeping in class for a whole variety of reasons, and yet a lot of those potential reasons might have been worrying, but now that we've got this kind of concrete information, and particularly in terms of kind of Kelly having a caring responsibility for 2 siblings as young as 3 or 4, we've got information her mother is a drug addict. That's a very vague and general statement, and it doesn't give us too much information about the nature of the addiction or how that impacts on mum's ability to look after her children. But certainly we get a sense that kind of Kelly's having to or feeling the need to take on a caring role, and so there's potential vulnerabilities about not just her 3 and 4-year-old siblings, but Kelly herself as a 14-year-old. So that increase there, not surprising at all, and it would seem well-founded. By contrast, we get an interesting change in the next scenario I want to pick, and that was Jane 7 and Jim 5. So the information you had in week 5, the mother lives with a man who regularly physically assaults her. Neighbours have reported their concerns to the police. And in week 5, with that little bit of information, 60% of you selected Jane and Jim. So just looking down the list here, that was the 3rd most selected scenario in week 5 when you had that initial information. Now, we move into week 6, and the extra information you get, neighbours reported concerns to police, we knew this. The children have never been assaulted, but they have witnessed their mother being abused. The police referred the children to the hearing system because of concern about their safety. The children love their mother and she loves them. So we've got this extra information, and really interestingly, we see a lot less of you pick this. It was that Jane and Jim go from 60% down to 17%. So less than 1 in 5 of you saying that this isn't as big a concern now. And that feels really interesting, really significant, given what we know about domestic violence and what we know about the impact of being in a household where domestic violence is present, and witnessing it kind of firsthand, and about the huge and profound effects that can have on children and well-being in terms of their emotional well-being and their development and ability to thrive and grow. And so to see this scenario have so many less learners select it as one of the 3 that's causing them the most concern, I could say that that's really interesting. In some senses, part of my response is actually, I find that response concerning the fact that so many people are not viewing this as seriously now. Now, we can assume that part of that differentiation is some people saying that they're not actually being assaulted themselves, but they've witnessed their mum being assaulted. They're part of a household where domestic violence is present. And given that as I say, what we know about domestic violence and the profoundly significant impact that can have on children and young being in terms of emotional well-being and development, then that's a really interesting and significant change. Likewise, I recognise I kind of see some of the comments coming up here, so I'll respond to one of them that's kind of caught my eye. Emily McKenzie. Emily, thanks for selecting there. And you're right that it was hard to pick because you'll get extra information. And I guess one of the points, we're kind of doing this as an academic exercise. We're giving you 10 scenarios and say you can only pick 3. I like to think that in the real world that social workers or child protection officers or whoever are not told you can only intervene necessarily with 3 out of the 10 children. So we're kind of asking you to engage in an exercise. But nonetheless, the fact that such a significant drop was seen in this scenario being selected is interesting, especially when we begin to think a bit more deeply about different responses to and attitudes to domestic abuse and the challenges that we often face in terms of kind of bringing this issue to the fore and responding to it in a way that feels appropriate and responds in an effective manner. So that's something interesting for us to think about. And if part of the whole purpose of a course such as this is to prompt some discussion and debate and get us to kind of think about things and different criteria, then it's fulfilling that purpose. The third scenario I was going to select was the scenario of Ross, who was 18 months old. In week 5, you were getting information. He's in hospital with a broken arm. He was in the care of his parents at the time. There's no proof as to what happened. Now, in week 1, this got 24%. And then we moved on to Ross was referred by the doctor to the social work department. Records show that Ross has suffered various bruises over recent months. Another baby is due soon. A child protection case conference was held, and it is referred Ross to the reporter. And so we saw this move from 24% to 41%. And again, kind of not this one, I would say, not particularly surprising that we see this one increase, because we've got more information, and it raises more question marks. It gives us a bit more to think about, and the fact that Ross has suffered various bruises over recent months. So you can imagine this is beginning to kind of raise questions about here. Is there a potential kind of pattern of behaviour here? I guess it could raise questions about what has caused the broken arm in the first instance. Was it because people, and children especially, have accidents and break bones and limbs all the time? But more questions being raised here about potential kind of pattern of behaviour, and then we'll get information about another child being on the way, and thus this raising kind of more concerns. More concerns at this point, perhaps not surprising. I'm not going to. You can go to the page in week 6 and see the results as they've played out over the 2 weeks for yourself, and kind of follow the discussion that came up on that page underneath. So I'd encourage you to look at that and kind of keep that conversation going about kind of why you did or didn't change your selections, and what you think this kind of exercise kind of illustrates. I want to move on now to Billy's story. Right, so I'll put a bit of a kind of disclaimer at this point, because obviously this week we went about things in a slightly different way. Billy's story, the last instalment, didn't open up at the start of week 6 because we had a poll from the end of week 5. And if you remember, at the end of week 5, Billy was at the children's hearing, and the children's hearing were on the verge of making a decision, and we can give you 2 options and ask you to think about that. We've since kind of closed the poll, and we've opened up the final week of Billy's story. So if you've not watched the final week of Billy's story and you want to watch that without knowing what the outcome was, then probably the best thing to do is to stop listening to this at present. Go and engage with Billy's story, and then you can come back and pick this up on YouTube afterwards. If you have engaged, or you're happy to do it in a kind of slightly different order, it's just that's the kind of spoiler alert. Okay, so if you haven't watched it already and you haven't looked, then the conclusion that we chose to have in this run of Billy's story was that the panel made the decision for Billy to remain at home. They didn't think him going to a respite foster placement was the best thing at this point in time for him, and he should stay at home, and that the social work department should be asked to put some extra supports in place in order that Billy and his mum be supported. Now, in your poll, of the people that voted, 77% of you agreed with that. 77% of you said you thought that the best thing for Billy at this point in time was to stay at home, which also means that 23% of you thought that respite foster care was perhaps a better option at this point in time. And that's interesting in terms of, as compared to previous cohorts on care for vulnerable children, it's just a slightly different proportion. Normally, the percentage of people wanting Billy to stay at home would be kind of slightly higher. So us having 77% for Billy at home, and by contrast, 23% in respite foster care, just kind of slightly different. So that's kind of slightly interesting. Billy's story has generated a huge amount of comments, huge amounts of questions, as it always does. So I guess, again, important to stress at this point that Billy's story is not a real story in the sense that it's not based on an individual, but like I think it's very much based in reality in terms of some of the issues and challenges that a number of children and families face, certainly in the UK, kind of up and down the country just now. So it's a good learning opportunity. It's a good learning opportunity for us to explore kind of some of the issues and themes that come out of the story. So thank you for all the questions that have been posted, both in relation to Billy's story and elsewhere. So I'm going to start with some questions about Billy's story. Again, my apologies, I can't respond to every question that's been posted. I've tried to kind of group some things together in themes. So I'll just get to the right piece of paper here. Sorry, that would help. Yes, right. So first question, I'm going to respond to Natasha MacArthur. So Natasha, thanks for posting your question. Do you think this is the best decision both for Billy and his mum? Right. So the short answer to that for me just now would be yes, but that'd be yes based on the very limited information that you have. So we've got to appreciate that Billy's story is but a learning tool in this course. It's 6 short 4-minute videos, so you're getting little snippets of information. Obviously, in real life, kind of social workers, children's panel members would be engaging with kind of far more information and basing decisions and interventions on full assessments and much more information. So we've asked you to vote on kind of something kind of quite small and limited by that. But on the basis of what you had, I think absolutely yes. And my reason for saying that, Natasha, is that in terms of the story that we told, by far the most supportive thing for Billy was his relationship with his mum, Karen, and that being the most single important thing in his life, and despite the kind of ups and downs, the investment that he has in that relationship with Karen, and all the positives that he gets from that. So I think to take that single most positive thing away from Billy just now, be it perhaps motivated to try and offer him some respite, to offer Karen some space, then I think that this is the correct thing for Billy at this point in time. But I guess the question after that becomes, how do we support the family further? And that brings us on to some other questions. So that would be my initial answer to your question, Natasha. Then we've got a range of other questions that begin to get into, right, well, that being the case, what happens next? So Katerina Smith, Katerina, thank you for your question. Ask a question, do you think that children like Billy with a supervision order could still end up bouncing back and forth to social services because of lack of alternative care available? And yeah, and I think certainly the commentary to week 6 of Billy's story makes the comment that whilst this is the end of Billy's story for the 6 weeks of this run of the programme, if Billy was real, this wouldn't be the end of the story for Billy and his mum. Billy and his mum are going to continue to experience issues and are going to continue to require ongoing support and supervision. So the question then becomes, right, kind of what does that look like, and how is that kind of put in place? And if not put in place, then Katerina, then yeah, one of the worries would be that Billy and Karen could find themselves back at a children's hearing because there's further or more concerns about Billy's well-being and growth. So thank you for your question. Then move on to, I've kind of tried to group kind of 2 or 3 questions together that kind of we're all asking similar things. So I've got questions here from Polly Alice Reeson, Irene Cockram, and Jenna P. So Polly, Irene and Jenna, thank you for your questions. And Polly, Irene and Jenna all ask questions round about the process of panel decisions, because obviously the panels can make different decisions, but about kind of how long do they last, can they be overturned, is there the right of appeal, can they be reviewed as such. And so that I'll kind of summarise some of the main parts about this, but again, I would probably the best place to go for more specific information about this is go a good, easy, accessible source of information. In the first place would be the website for the Scottish Children's Hearing System, and the links for that are all provided in the pages about children's hearings on the programme. So follow those links and you'll get more of this information here. But the short answer would be yes, all compulsory supervision orders require to be reviewed. What the rules and regulations about the hearing system say is that they would certainly for a home supervision order, such as something like Billy's, that those would normally be reviewed within a year, but they can and would be reviewed sooner if that was felt to be necessary. Yes, there is an appeals process if anybody is dissatisfied with the outcome and decision of the children's hearing system, and there's a set of rules and regulations that govern that appeals process. And children and families have the right to have legal representation with them at children's hearing system as well. So it's not just a one decision and that's the end of it, and nothing happens thereafter. It's a system that is governed by a whole set of rules and regulations, all designed to protect the rights and responsibilities of the people present. I'm just going to pause for a second to take a glass of water. Thanks. So thank you for those questions. Now, I'm going to move on to, I guess, another set of questions that, again, that I've tried to kind of pull together kind of thematically here. So Amanda Steele asked the question, how often are follow-up appointments after the decision has been made? Well, that wouldn't necessarily be, Amanda, that wouldn't necessarily be governed specifically by the Children's Hearing. The Children's Hearing, when they place a supervision order and make recommendations, and in the Scottish system, it would then often become the responsibility of the social work department or the children's services department, whatever label it would be going by in different jurisdictions, to then put the support in. So in terms of kind of, you asked a question about kind of frequency or kind of follow-up appointments and different supports, that would vary depending on kind of where the children were living. And to, I guess if we're being realistic as well, the competing demands that social workers have. So actually kind of linking this back to the previous exercise with the 10 scenarios, I guess we do need to kind of recognise that social work departments, for instance, only have a finite amount of resource. They have a certain amount of kind of workers, and those workers have caseloads and are able to work with a certain amount of cases and for different amounts of times kind of within a week. So the actual amount of input that a family such as Bill and his mum might receive would be governed by a kind of whole range of factors, and resources would be part of that. Debbie Summers asked, so Debbie, thank you for your question. Debbie asked about once the decision has been made for a child to remain on a supervision order, is there a support plan put in place? Well, yes, there would be. That would be kind of part of the follow-up from the professionals involved. Are there regular checks in the families to make sure everything is going well? So yeah, that plan of intervention, that plan of engagement would be would be set out, often led by perhaps an allocated social worker. But if you're thinking of kind of Billy's story, actually, in terms of the kind of professionals that you, as the learner, saw most of, actually you saw less of the social worker and more of Billy's support worker. So it would, on a case-by-case basis as to who's actually involved, then it wouldn't necessarily be the kind of social worker in the first instance that might be having that immediate support. You also ask questions about, can the decision be reversed, etc. Well, kind of cases can always be brought back to the Children's Hearing System for further consideration. Kind of referrals can be made again. They would be, and in terms of answering the previous questions, there is a right of appeal and such like. Rowan Hagdorn. So Rowan, thanks for your question. You asked the question, what support would a family like Billy's normally be able to access? And you said, I realise this can only be answered in a kind of Scottish context, so let's actually kind of take this as the opportunity to kind of widen out how we're thinking here. Also, Billy's story is set in a Scottish context. Now, we're a university based in Scotland, and the scenario is set here. But I guess I would like to think that the themes and issues that we're talking about with regards to Billy's story are universal in terms of kind of thinking about children's family structures, support networks, and what happens when those family structures and support networks are put under pressure in the way that Billy's have been, and the questions that this begins to raise for us as a society and for professional services in terms of kind of how do we potentially step in here and offer some support or guidance or such like. So these themes are kind of universal in that sense. And I guess what I'd be asking everybody to do, especially those out with Scotland, is like kind of how do you imagine a case such as Billy's story would be responded to in terms of your setting, in terms of kind of your country, your culture, what might be likely to happen or not in terms of responses to Billy and his mum. In terms of what support Billy would be likely to face, that feels like an important question, Rowan, in terms of kind of widening this out, setting Billy's story again, within a context. Even as I'm looking at the kind of chat here and that's coming up on the on the side of the screen, and lots of the comments that have been posted over the 6 weeks as Billy's stories has progressed is about kind of people saying, I'm really concerned about Billy. And probably certainly 2 to 4 weeks ago in the first live stream, kind of one of the things I was mentioning then was, despite that, sadly, I think that cases such as Billy are not, at this point in time, are not particularly likely to jump high in the list of priorities of kind of children and family services, social work departments, because they're not in complete crisis. And as certainly in a UK context, as we have seen austerity continue for the last 10 years, we've seen budgets of all kind of care and social work services and education services come under real strain. We've seen an increase in poverty, we've seen increased use of food banks, etc., and the stress and strain that can cause on communities and families. That kind of one of the concerns, that the kind of net upshots of all of this, is that it's harder for social work departments to allocate resources in a truly, what we might class as a truly preventative way, because there's so many individuals and families in crisis at given times that's where the resources tend to be kind of pulled to. And I guess if we think if that was the case pre-COVID-19, I think one of the really scary and challenging things for us about thinking about moving forward is kind of where current circumstances are going to leave us in terms of that balance between the firefighting element of responding to immediate crisis versus an attempt to try and do something more preventative with either individual families or with communities as a means of bolstering and supporting communities and the families within them, so that there's more growth and development and building of resilience and thriving, as opposed to kind of things becoming more problematic and more crisis driven. And that's one of the real challenges for us kind of moving forward. So Rowan, in terms of kind of thinking about your question, obviously this is Billy is a fictional story, but I would say that everything would point towards kind of a family such as Billy might struggle to access supports when compared to other scenarios that are presented. It's almost kind of, I'm going back to our 10 scenarios and pick the 3 that cause the most concern for you. The Billy sitting alongside other children where there are immediate and profound child protection risks and risk of kind of immediate physical harm, for instance, then Billy's not going to be the number one priority in that sense. And these are the kind of difficult challenges facing a number of kind of professionals and volunteers as we think about how we kind of support and bolster a range of families. But kind of thank you for your question, Rowan. Other questions on a kind of same vein, Jacqueline Elliott, I'd like to know what help and support mum will get, and will it be straight away realistic? And there's an interesting thing here, I'll tie this into a question from Robert Agnew. Robert, you said, would you agree that the best way forward would be for Karen to get some more support with her mental health issues, and for Billy to receive the support he's already getting? So Robert, my short answer to your question is 100% absolutely yes. In a scenario such as this, I would suggest that far and away the most effective way to support Billy is to support his mum. Okay, to support his mum, support the kind of family structure, the family network, and by doing that, we support Billy. And so, linking into your question, Jacqueline, actually, then the sooner we get support to Karen, then by implication, the sooner that we're supporting Billy as well. And Tracy Andrews, you asked a similar question: how long will it be that support will be offered to Billy and his mum? How often will be followed up? And no, in the case of our story, then the sooner and the more frequent that happens, that is really going to support Billy. But again, actually thinking about the situation as it's playing out now, and what we knew about, or what we already know about mental health in our society just now, and mental health challenges and mental health needs, and then thinking about the impact of COVID-19 and lockdown, and then the transition out of lockdown and the huge challenges that's going to present to a number of people. Then the Billy's story becomes all the more relevant thing in this context about kind of how many family units will there be around the world where parents, it could be mother, father, whoever, are struggling to manage their own mental health needs, and by implication then are perhaps struggling to look after the children, be that physically, emotionally, in whatever way. So these are some really challenging things for us to think about moving forward as we begin to transition out of lockdown, whenever that's going to happen, whatever that's going to look like, and the ongoing nature of this, because even just comparing back to kind of 4 weeks ago when we had our first live stream event about, lots of things have changed, but lots of things are the same. But I think there's a kind of growing realization that this is going to profoundly kind of change our world as we move forward, and thinking about how we support and bolster families such as Billy's story in this family is going to be a kind of real something for us to really think significantly about as we move forward. And a number of questions posed about, I would like to know what else can be offered to support Billy's mum's mental health problems, and Manjot Mali, Mary McIntosh, Manju Sharma, Christina O'Hara, and Tina Bento Felipe, and Penelope Jackson all ask kind of similar kind of questions to such as this. I kind of want to have a go at answering this one in a kind of slightly different way. And so, having said the bit about there's an argument to say the best way to help Billy is to support Karen, support his mum, support the family structure. What that then begins to highlight, and again, I would encourage you to think about, wherever you're from, how does this play out where you are? If you use a phrase about how integrated or joined up services are, because in the Scottish context, what you've seen play out is Billy, this has been responded to via children's services. Billy's went to a children's hearing, and it's been viewed a bit of kind of childcare issue. But we're getting this increasing realisation, actually, central to this is Karen. Karen is an adult, and Karen with her mental health, and how do we support and improve Karen's mental health, and how joined up are our systems, how integrated are our systems to allow the desire and wish of the children's hearing. The panel have said that the best place for Billy to be is at home, but there needs to be more support put in place. And we can support Billy, and we see that happening with his advocacy worker. But then again, actually, imagine Billy's story was real and Billy was playing out just now. Then the biggest single support that Billy's got at present is physically perhaps inaccessible to him, or certainly not as accessible enough. So there'll be kind of challenges here about kind of how we join the systems up to ensure that Karen is receiving support in a way that is timely and effective as a means to support Billy. And that would be kind of one of the kind of significant challenges for this case, kind of moving forward. And a similar question, Inga Van Haroon. Inga, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly there. And she just asked a short question: what happens if mum gets extremely depressed again? Well, perhaps that links back to the earlier question about do we run the risk, or is there a concern about kind of this not being the end of the story for Billy and his mum? And yes, from everything that we know about kind of mental health needs and potential mental health issues, that some people experience mental health issues as a perhaps we might describe it as a a one-off period or incident, but for many people, it won't be a one-off incident or one-off period. There'll be kind of ongoing, perhaps kind of recurring issues, and who knows what the future is going to hold for Karen in terms of our kind of our mental health. But in terms of if that deteriorates further, that will have implications for Billy and his ongoing care. Some other questions here. So I've grouped another set of questions together. I'll just pause again to take another drink of water before we move on. Melanie Burdon asked a question about I can see Billy enjoying the support that he's getting from his support worker, which asks, is there any support available for the two of them to do something together? And I would hope that any professionals involved in Billy, professionals or volunteers involved in Billy's case, would be thinking about or be encouraged to think about that supporting and bolstering the family unit won't involve just working with both of them in isolation, but working with the kind of family in a more rounded and systemic way. So yeah, Melanie, I would hope that would be very much on the agenda of the people involved. And then some kind of final questions about Billy's story, just thinking, kind of keep an eye on the time here. Tony Cameron has posted a question. Tony, thanks for your question. It's a really interesting one. What is the reality of a case like Billy's to reach a children's hearings these days? I'm aware of great frustrations in primary schools where children are perhaps not attending for long periods of time, but they're very unlikely to come to the attention of the children's hearing system. And I guess what you're pointing towards here, Tony, is kind of something that I mentioned kind of previously about the kind of, what does it take for children to actually come into the system or to come to the attention of the system in order that they can be responded to? Because as we experience a mixture of or a combination of more need in society with perhaps less resources to try and support communities in society, then that's a bit of a toxic mix in that sense, and it points towards more children going below the radar in terms of our ability to respond to them. So Tony, I think you ask a really significant question there in terms of kind of what are the ability of our systems to actually pick up and respond to actual need that's out there. And again, I would be asking everybody, I mean, also in Scotland, this was in a children's hearing system context, but whatever country or setting you're in, about how effective do you feel the systems are there in terms of kind of identifying and picking up on and providing some sort of intervention or response, and how many are potentially flying under the radar and not allowing us to respond to them in a way that's significant enough. And we know that resources has got to kind of play a part in this, in the sense that we systems require resources and require enough resource in order to be able to carry out the different functions and support services that we require them to. One final question before I kind of change tact a bit. So Gary Purdon asked the question. So Gary, thanks for your question. You said it was interesting that social workers had recommended a spell with foster carers, yet the majority of participants in this course thought otherwise, along with the panel members. Do you think that this is a result of social workers not having enough time to spend with families? And probably actually, what I wouldn't want is actually the way we created the story to suggest that that would be the view of all social workers or the majority of social workers. But I think your question does highlight a point about them not having enough time to spend with families. One of the real concerns in the social work world for a long period of time just now has been the way that the role has evolved and kind of caseloads, and some of this is to do with resources and just how much time social workers have, especially children and family social workers, how much time children and family social workers have to spend with the children and families that they're working with. And about social workers' roles, the bit about caseloads about being spread too thin, and about kind of so many cases to try to manage, and how do you fit them all in, and how do you actually have enough time to to create those relationships, to invest that time in with the children and families that you're working with, and create those relationships. And then when increasingly social workers are required or need to do tasks that make them almost a bit more desk-based in terms of reports and procedures and different things that have got to be gone through, that the combination of these things can often has caused I guess a number of concerns and a lot of debate about kind of what should the function and role of social work be. And again, I'm also speaking here, particularly in a kind of Scottish UK context. And again, I would be asking people to think about, in your settings, how are these roles created, and what do we ask people to do or not as in the kind of social work role? Because quite simply, if we don't give social workers, if we don't make it a legitimate and central and important part of the social work role to be able to spend enough time, and even the use of that word, kind of what does enough equate to, but if we don't make that a legitimate and valued and central part of the social work role, then it does raise questions about the relationships that social workers will be able to develop with the children and families that they're supporting, and then about that, how that then kind of plays out in that ongoing relationship and the assessments that they form, and ultimately about the different interventions that we provide. So thanks for your question, Gary. I'm going to flick on to some other questions here, just make sure I pick up the right pieces of paper here. So some other questions that were a bit more general, but actually I've got a couple of questions here that I guess have been sparked by Billy's story, but they're not necessarily about Billy's story. And the comments are coming in so thick and fast up the kind of chat bar here. I've just caught the odd one as it comes past, but I've seen at least one person, I think possibly two people, kind of say that they're either kind of serving panel members or previously were panel members. So it's great to see those contributions. And one of the questions I was asked was from Mary Donaldson. I'd like to ask about the training period to become panel members, to undertake what the volunteers do, and kind of how can I find out more information about it? Well, yes, that there is a training an education process that panel members have to go through in order to become panel members. Again, actually, Mary, the best place to get more information about this would be to follow the links to the Children's Hearing website, and if you follow the links there, you can find more. But I've got a just brief bit of information here, and I can actually read them word for word off the website here. As a trainee panel member, you would need to commit to an initial intensive training programme. It would involve 2 or 3 evening sessions and 7 days full training. There's online study, assessments. It's roughly 80 hours over 4 months, whilst you develop your skills, and you would also be required to observe 2 or 3 children's hearing as part of that training process. And through your training, you actually gain a qualification, a professional development award for children's hearings in Scotland panel members. So there's I guess, no, as Ponch says, it's not just that people are selected and recruited and dropped into this role kind of without a process going on. And there would be ongoing requirements of panel members thereafter. But I say, kind of follow the links to the panel, the Children's Hearing System, and you can get more information on that. And then another question, this has been posed by Nick Alcock. So Nick, thanks for your question. And Nick asked a question based on kind of some of the statistics that we kind of spoke about in the course about the percentage of referrals coming to children's hearings on grounds of protection, as opposed to those thinking only about criminal behaviour. And given the information we gave you about the formation and the origins of the children's hearing system, and it was actually about diverting young people who had either committed offences or were accused of committed offences, and diverting them from the adult criminal justice system. So given that it was its origin, it was designed to reduce juvenile delinquency, and if this feels like a less significant factor, is this system still fit for purpose? I could sit and talk about that from now until Kingdom Come, actually. So Nick, what I'm going to kind of point you towards is the independent care review that has just been conducted in Scotland. And again, I certainly mentioned this 4 weeks ago in the first live stream event. And the independent care review has been a huge and significant piece of work that's went on in Scotland, and reported back in February after this period dating back to 2017, and it's set out a number of targets and an ongoing plan of work, which takes us right up to 2030. Although a lot of that, I guess, also all that came out pre-COVID-19. So one of the things that we're going to have to think about is kind of where the plan and the recommendations of the Independent Care Review sit in relation to the world post or living with COVID-19. But I want to, Nick, I want to read out to you kind of again a quote from the Independent Care Review about what they had to say about the children's hearing system, because the children's hearing system featured quite significantly in the Independent Care Review. And what they said is the principles that underpin Scotland's unique children's hearing system must be upheld, but there must be a more active consideration of the underlying structures so that the system is best placed to truly listen to and uphold the legal rights of children and their families. Okay, and so that was making that broad commitment to the children's hearing system and the values and principles that drive it. But the review did identify a number of challenges that exist within the hearing system, and just to select out some of the things that they said, they highlighted the rotation of panel members, meaning that when children perhaps re-attend a hearing, it's a different set of panel members potentially hearing and considering the case, and can that lead to inconsistency? They talked about, again, I'm quoting here from the report, hearing struggling to operate in a manner that recognises the trauma of the children and the families who appear before them. So about that kind of recognising truly what is going on and the impact that this might have had. It's identified other things such as the timings of hearings. They often happen during school time, which means children have to be taken out of school to go to hearings, and about kind of some of the issues that this can face for children in terms of kind of feeling to be made, they're missing lessons, they kind of potentially feel different, kind of feeling stigmatised in relation to other children as well. So the view that the Independent Care Review is that the children's hearing system is something that the values and process that underpin it is something that we should remain committed to. But we've got a number of challenges to think about as we move that forward in the world. And actually, in preparation for this and answering some of the questions, I flicked onto the Children's Hearing kind of website, and it's interesting seeing, given what's happening just now, I didn't have a chance to look at it in too much detail, but like a lot of other things in society just now, Children's Hearing System have had to take a lot of that activity online. So I saw information popping up about Skype hearings and how different things have been handled there as well. So COVID-19 and the pandemic is going to present another range of challenges in terms of the children's hearing system, in terms of how it takes things forward. But thanks for your question, Nick. Right, so in the last kind of 5 or 10 minutes or so, I've got some more kind of, I guess, just general questions to respond to. An interesting one here from Linda Mullins. So Linda asked, I heard this morning on the radio that the UK is the most fearful country in Europe about COVID. Is this because we are generally risk averse as a society in the UK? Well, thanks for the question, Linda. I guess a number of interesting things within it. I don't know if we're the most, I don't know how you measure what countries more or less fearful about COVID-19. And also the statement about, are we generally risk averse as a society in the UK? Well, obviously, that this is a theme that we've thought about during the programme, and there's arguments for that and arguments against that. I guess as time goes on, we will see how we respond to this. I guess it is interesting thinking about now, especially certainly within the UK, as a lot of the discourse has moved towards steps out of lockdown, and that's causing us to consider more concretely about how frightening and a process this is going to present for a lot of people. And actually, despite everything else, that despite all the difficulties that lockdown might present for many of us, for many people, actually what lockdown will be doing is kind of helping them to feel safe. And actually, the thought of kind of going back outside more and reintegrating back into society, that might potentially for people present more challenges and risks and be more fearful. So as to kind of how we manage risk going forward is going to be kind of quite a significant challenge for us. Melinda Garvey, you asked a question about her school has put a lot of changes in place following suggestions by a book by Paul Dix called When Adults Change, Everything Changes. Do you think this approach is along the lines of social pedagogy and CYC? So my initial response, Melinda, is it's not a book or an author I'm familiar with, but I googled it and kind of had a kind of quick look at some of the stuff about it. And so without having read the book, seeing one of the quotes, it's described as an approach whereby expectations and boundaries are exemplified by people, not 1,000 rules that nobody can recall. On the basis of that, I would absolutely, the sentiment of that I would 100% agree with. And actually that notion of kind of working with children and young people, be it in a school setting, be it in a home setting, community care setting, wherever it is, about the adults as role models and adults as kind of leaders and kind of setting examples and such like, and actually about so rather than trying to manage things by boundaries and rules, and especially at this, I can see comments coming up in the chat here about the amount of stress that the pandemic and lockdown has created, and I know there's been some interesting stuff coming out about when schools, certainly in the UK context, because I know it's different countries and some are more ahead of us already in this in terms of schools beginning to reopen, but an increasing call for when schools do reopen, there needs to be such a focus on fun and play and helping to keep children feel safe, and as opposed to jumping back into we're behind the curriculum and throwing work at them, and obviously educational attainment is still a kind of huge factor for us moving forward, but we absolutely kind of think back to the material in the earlier weeks, especially Laura speaking about containment. Think about Jenny Malloy talking about love and kind of thinking about, right, when we get children back into settings such as schools, for instance, then how do we help to hold these children emotionally and kind of make them feel kind of safe and give them a bit of a base for kind of moving forward from. So thanks for the question, Melinda. And again, thinking about kind of some of the bigger issues that might face society just now, kind of Elizabeth McGovern, kind of asked a question about, do you worry about this pandemic? We begin to go back to a new normal, that there will be more children like Billy created, but I think I probably mentioned that already to some extent. Yeah, I think there's a real worry about kind of how many children are going to go, children and families are going to potentially go below the radar because of the current scenario that we're in. And you mentioned about kind of a welfare system and cuts, and they're really, and again in a UK context, really frightening stuff. Yesterday about council, this was mainly in England, but about councils potentially facing 20% budget cuts. Just now, I mean, that just feels like, especially given what's happened for the last 10 years in terms of austerity and how local services in many instances have been cut to the bone, given the increased need that is going to exist in society as a result of COVID-19, the thought of us cutting budgets at this time in terms of being able to provide less support and less resources is just a truly horrifying one. And especially as we begin to analyse the way in which COVID-19 plays out, when we analyse it in terms of issues of poverty and health, and who is most vulnerable to this, and the rates at which people are being infected, and the way fatalities are playing out as well, and where there's more poverty, there's more poor health, there's more underlying health issues, and viruses such as COVID-19 gravitate towards that. So the issue for us moving forward in terms of budgets and resources is again kind of really quite significant. Was got a question from Karen P. So Karen, thanks for your question. She asked, does Graham agree that we don't know yet what the outcomes will be for some children? Their mental health issues may spike. Well, yeah, absolutely. And all the evidence would suggest that we're likely to be looking at more instances of more significant kind of mental health needs within society as a result of COVID-19, and that's going to present us with a huge amount of challenges in terms of how we move forward. And then you ask the question about, well, if that's the case, then might social pedagogy have more to offer? And that's also kind of one of the concepts that we've thought about via the programme. Absolutely, in terms of that focus on relationships, family involvement, and then thinking about play and activities, and linking that into just what I said previously about the tasks of schools kind of moving forward as we kind of begin to kind of, and that notion of kind of how we make the world a safe and manageable and contained place for children and young people moving forward as we try to respond to this situation. And then one last comment from Leslie Mostert. Leslie, you asked a question about the relationship between residential care, the family home as opposed to extended family care, and is there the risk of one being prioritised again over the other? Well, yes, there's I guess there's a kind of whole range of kind of research and ideological discussions about the best place and setting for children and young people. If you're interested in reading more about your question, I would encourage you to look to the work of Frank Ainsworth. Frank is a researcher involving kind of child and youth care, particularly in residential services, and about the arguments and merits for different sorts of services, and that might be a useful resource for you to look at. So I'm just going to finish to wind up now. So I'm going to go back to my kind of start with. I've got so many pieces of paper here. Just excuse me for a second. Where's the final piece of paper I was looking for? Here it's here. Right, thank you. So I just want to start by finishing up to say kind of thank you for all the participation over the duration of the 6 weeks in the live streams, especially in the chats and comments that come up. We've never had a course with so many people and so many comments being posted. We started in week one with a fair amount of discussion about poverty and the risk between poverty and risk and vulnerability. And I've mentioned the independent care review that happened in Scotland, and I want to kind of finish with a quote that again comes out of the report of the independent care review. And they say, on the subject of poverty, it is impossible to review Scotland's care system without properly considering the pervasive impact of poverty. Children growing up in poverty are overrepresented in the Child Protection Register and are more likely to be removed from their families. And that's kind of quite a kind of stark statement about that we know that children experiencing poverty are more likely to experience risk and vulnerability. And when we place that within the context of COVID-19 and the ongoing challenges for us as a society in terms of accessing and responding to these children and families, then the challenges we're going to face are all the more profound. And I think we've got an awful lot to think about as we move forward. I'd just like to finish by thanking each and every one of you for joining us as a learner on the programme, for posting your comments. I mentioned 2 weeks ago about our sociability rating, about the amount of people that are not just on the course, but are posting questions and comments and participating. And you all retain access to the material for a significant period of time after the course closes. So please kind of keep engaging with it, keep those conversations going. I'd also like to finish as well by then saying that, and you may have seen this information elsewhere, but we do have other online offerings at University of Strathclyde. We've got some other short courses such as this, which are hosted via the FutureLearn site. So you might be interested in those if you look on the FutureLearn site. But over and above that, we have a completely distance learning master's programme. So master's level study in child and youth care studies, and I'm the course lead on that as well. Having tasted this, if that might be something that you're interested in, obviously it's master's level study, so it's post-degree, so can I appreciate that it's something that might be relevant for some of you, but at other times for other people not perhaps just now, but it is something that you're interested in. If you go to the University of Strathclyde website, you just put in Child and Youth Care Studies or put in my name and you'll find the course page kind of quite readily. And if you've got any questions about the programme, then please feel free to kind of reach out to me. And I guess kind of one last thing is, if you do apply for the MSc and you are accepted and you're offered the place, if you've completed this course and you've got the certificate of completion for this course, it makes you eligible for a discount on your fees on the Child and Youth Care Studies programme. So there's the ability for those two things to come together. I'm going to finish now, so just by saying again, just a huge thank you to everybody for joining us, for participating over both during this session, but over the course of the whole 6 weeks. And I'd just like to say to everybody that whatever the future is going to hold for us just now, with the challenges that we face, can I just wish you all kind of good health, and for yourself, for your friends and your family, and can just look after yourself and stay safe. Thank you.